Think for a second, it's a very common view today that Jesus is a great ethical and moral teacher.
Honestly touched me. Like, I don't talk about my faith a ton on the show, but I'm a Christian. Yeah. Jimmy Kimmel is as well. And he addressed Erica Kirk's remarks at the memorial this past weekend. If we could play that clip.
Erica Kirk forgave the man who shot her husband. She forgave him. That is an example we should follow. If you believe in the teachings of Jesus as I do, there it was. That's it. A selfless act of grace, forgiveness from a grieving widow. It touched me deeply.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. As you know, lots has been going on with ABC lately. Jimmy Kimmel was fired and then rehired. And there are even rumors that The View is going to be replaced with an Erica Kirk, Megyn Kelly show. Kind of lost in all of this was an amazing moment where Jimmy Kimmel talks about the teachings of Jesus Christ. Keyword, the teachings of Jesus, and how Erica Kirk embodies them by forgiving and extending grace to the murderer of her husband, Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson. This got me thinking, though, about the relationship between the teachings of Jesus Christ and the person of Jesus.
Think for a second, it's a very common view today that Jesus is a great ethical and moral teacher. Okay, if that's all he is, then he's in the same boat we are. If he's not divine, he needs to be saved as much as we do. But turn that around. As the church fathers said, what has not been assumed has not been saved. If he's not fully human, then we have not been saved. The great orthodox teaching of the church is meant finally to preserve the dynamics of salvation, because that is what happens when divinity and humanity come together. Now, up and down the centuries, you know this. Heretics have emphasized in a one-sided way divinity or humanity. Think of the Monophysites, the Docetists, centuries ago, who overemphasized the divinity of the Lord. But think, too, of the Nestorians, who overemphasized his humanity. I'd say today we're much more Nestorian than we are Monophysite. We tend to overemphasize the humanity of the Lord. The trouble with all these heretical positions is they undermine the fact of salvation. So, for us today and for you in your missionary work, you're going to come up against this problem of, simply humanizing Jesus, making him one interesting religious figure among many. We need, I think, especially today, to emphasize his divinity.
All right, so the point I want us to see is that Bishop Barron is making it very clear that we need to emphasize the divinity of Christ in our current culture. So thinking about this in light of Jimmy Kimmel, I think it was amazing that he talked about the teachings of Jesus, but he had a great opportunity to talk about the divinity of Jesus. And of course, the entire point is that it emphasizes salvation. Since Jesus is God and is man, he is the coming together of the two, we can be saved. We can respond to his call of grace, not just his teachings of grace and embody them, but respond to the grace that he can only give us because of who he is. We need to be wedded to Christ. We need to be wedded to Christ so that we have everything that we need for godly incarnational living. What Jimmy Kimmel said, while very important, I think can be wrongly interpreted by some. I mean, Gandhi could have said something similar. Muhammad could have submitted to this view of Jesus, which of course is a good thing, right? I'm not saying that's a bad thing. We want people to find common ground with us as Christians on Jesus, but we can't lose the distinctiveness of who Jesus is and what that means for our world. And without presenting Jesus as God, as the God-man that has come to save, there is no good news. There might be some good teaching, there might be some good ethical insights that we can gain, but we won't see and perceive the salvation that we need in his name. Bishop Barron then explains in this talk the nitty-gritty of why this view of Jesus is so important.
The point is, you got to make a decision. The Gospels compel it. And doesn't Jesus himself say it? You're either with me or you're against me. Now, again, everybody, I'm not proposing you do this in some aggressive way, but it is indeed implicit in the logic of the Gospels that Jesus compels a choice. Let me plant this in your minds. If you proclaim Christ, and people remain indifferent about him, you haven't proclaimed him adequately. Give me, in fact, any day someone who is against Jesus after I proclaimed him. At least I've proclaimed what's decisively important about him. If they say, yeah, this guy who's claiming to be God, look, and I'm against that, at least I've adequately presented who Jesus is. He does compel a choice.
All of us have a choice if we're going to submit to the lordship of Jesus Christ. And when I listened to what Jimmy Kimmel had to say, while it was good, I do think it was inadequate. You see, simply submitting to the teachings of Jesus Christ, the ethical teachings, and seeing him as a moral exemplar of somebody that we can be like, fundamentally misses who he is. If all you get from Jesus is that he was a great moral teacher, and that's all you present to people, that he is merely that, you have not got to the point of compelling them to choose him for who he truly is. And Jesus demands, there is a divine imperative. Christ commands that you choose. He is either liar, lunatic, or Lord. He doesn't leave you in kind of that limbo, in limbo, right? He requires that you make a choice on his identity, who he is and what he has done. And of course, again, the dynamic here is salvation. Jesus has great teachings, but you must choose. And I want you to see, not only must you choose, and I think lots of people that are watching this channel have already chosen Christ in this way, but you have a great chance. Jimmy Kimmel had a shot, Bishop Barron has a shot, and you have a shot in the circle of influence that you inhabit every day of your waking life, right? And how are you going to talk about Christ? Oh, he's just a good teacher. He extends. He's a good teacher, and we need to embody his teachings. No, that's not adequate. He is the God man that came to rescue and save us. Will you choose him? Will you rely upon him? Will you be wedded to him through his commands, through his scriptures, through his church? Or will you just see him as one ethical teacher in a litany of others, that you will take a few principles and continue kind of your little moralistic, independent, individualistic life? That's not what God has. And perhaps maybe that's the issue with our culture. How it conceives Christ, this is the daily dose of Christ after all. And I hope that you see him and perceive that he is absolutely everything. And without him, there is nothing. I am the way, the truth, and the life, he says. If you do not come to me, you have no life within you. I am life. I am the bread of life. I am the light that has overcome the darkness. Jesus Christ is God, 100% God, and he is 100% man, so that God and man can be united, so that you can have God within you, the Holy Spirit, that you can begin the process, the gradual process of becoming more like him. That's the only way the teachings are embodied and enacted anyway, y'all. Just be thinking about those things today. Peace and God bless.